The security camera never lies. Ray Carter learned that on a Tuesday morning when he should have been under the hood of a Ford F-150, not watching his wife kiss his brother in their garage. He'd installed the cameras 3 weeks ago, thinking someone was stealing tools from his shop. Instead, he caught Sarah feeding Eli breakfast in Ray's kitchen, wearing Ray's favorite hoodie, laughing at jokes Ray never heard. The timestamp showed 9:47 a.m. Ray had been at work since 6. The footage kept rolling. Sarah's hand on Eli's chest, Eli's fingers through Sarah's hair, their bodies pressed against Ray's workbench where he'd proposed to her 8 years ago. Ray watched it twice, then he deleted it, then he recovered it from the recycle bin. His hands didn't shake, his breathing stayed steady. 23 years in the Army taught him to process intel before reacting. The third time he watched, Ray noticed details. Sarah wore the wedding ring he'd saved 6 months to buy. Eli wore the Carhartt jacket Ray had given him for Christmas. They used Ray's coffee mugs, the ones his mother had left him before she died. Ray closed the laptop. He had work to do. "How was your day?" Sarah asked that evening, not looking up from her phone. She sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through Instagram, double-tapping pictures of friends' vacations and restaurant meals. "Fine." Ray opened the refrigerator. Half the beer was gone. He'd counted 12 bottles that morning. Now there were 6. "Eli helped me move some boxes to the attic," Sarah said. "Your brother's actually pretty handy when he wants to be." Ray pulled out a beer. "Where is he now?" "Shower. He's got a date tonight." Sarah finally looked up, her expression neutral. "Some girl from the coffee shop in town?" Ray nodded. He'd seen Eli's phone on the counter earlier, unlocked. The only recent messages were from Sarah. No coffee shop girl, no date. "I'm going to work on the truck," Ray said. "It's 8:30 at night. Can't sleep anyway." Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then at Ray. "Don't stay out there too late. You've been distant lately." Ray paused at the door. "Distant how?" "I don't know. Just different. Like you're thinking about something else all the time." She was right. He was thinking about the best way to destroy 2 people without breaking any laws. In the garage, Ray opened his laptop and reviewed the camera footage from the past week. Eli arrived at the house every day around 9, 30 minutes after Ray left for work. He left around 5, 20 minutes before Ray came home. Military precision. Ray copied the files to a secure drive, then uploaded them to a cloud storage account Sarah didn't know about. He'd learned data security in the Army, too. His phone buzzed, a text from his lawyer confirming tomorrow's appointment. Ray had called him that morning, told him he needed to review some paperwork. Nothing urgent, just wanted to understand his options. The shower upstairs turned off. Ray heard Eli's voice, then Sarah's laughter. They thought he couldn't hear them from the garage. Ray pulled up the property records on his laptop. The house was in his name only. He'd bought it before the marriage, using his military savings and veteran benefits. Sarah had never contributed to the mortgage. In Colorado, that made it separate property, not marital. He scrolled through their joint bank account statements. Sarah's spending had increased dramatically over the past 3 months. Restaurants, clothing, makeup. She'd been preparing for something. Ray heard footsteps on the stairs. He closed the laptop and picked up a wrench, pretending to work on the engine. "Ray?" Eli appeared in the doorway, hair still damp, wearing a button-down shirt Ray had never seen before. "You okay, man? You seem stressed lately." "Just tired." Ray didn't look up from the engine. "How's the job search going?" "Actually, I got a lead. Construction company in Fort Collins. Might have something next week." "That's good news." Eli stepped closer. "Look, I know I've been staying here longer than we planned. I appreciate you and Sarah letting me get back on my feet. I don't take it for granted." Ray tightened a bolt that didn't need tightening. "Family helps family." "Exactly, that's what I told Sarah yesterday." "She said you've been working extra hours, stressed about money. I offered to help with groceries, but she said you're too proud to accept." Ray set down the wrench. "Sarah said that?" "She's worried about you, man. We both are." "You're carrying too much weight alone." Ray finally looked at his brother. Eli's face showed genuine concern, or a perfect imitation of it. At 33, Eli still looked like the high school quarterback he'd been, while Ray had the weathered face of a man who'd spent 2 decades fixing other people's problems. "I'm fine," Ray said. "Just processing some changes." "Changes? Nothing major. Just thinking about the future." Eli nodded. "Well, if you need to talk, you know I'm here. We're brothers." That means something. After Eli left, Ray sat in the garage for another hour, staring at the wall. He'd built this place himself, board by board, after he'd gotten out of the army. Sarah had picked out the paint colors, helped him organize the tools. They'd made love on this concrete floor the night they'd finished the electrical work. Ray pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. He stopped at Jake Morrison, his old platoon sergeant. Jake ran a private investigation firm in Denver now. They'd kept in touch. Ray typed, "Need to talk. Personal matter. Can you meet tomorrow?" Jake's response came immediately. "Roger that. My office at 1400. Everything okay?" Ray typed back. "Define okay." Jake Morrison looked like he'd aged 10 years since leaving the army, but his eyes were still sharp. He poured coffee from a machine that had seen better days and slid a cup across his desk. "You look like shit, Carter." "Thanks. You always were a charmer." Jake leaned back in his chair. "What's the situation?" Ray told him everything. The cameras, the footage, the lies. Jake listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. "How long has this been going on?" Jake asked. 3 months that I can prove. Probably longer." "And you want what exactly?" "Divorce papers? Custody battle prep? I want them to understand what they've done." Ray's voice stayed level. "I want them to face consequences." Jake studied him for a long moment. "Consequences can mean a lot of things. Some of them illegal. I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about justice. Justice through legal channels? Justice through exposure, through truth, through making them live with what they've chosen." Jake nodded slowly. "I can help with that, but it's going to cost you. And it's going to hurt." "How much?" $3,000 for a comprehensive background check on both of them. Financial records, employment history, social media forensics. "If there's dirt, I'll find it." Ray pulled out his checkbook. "When can you start?" "Already started. I ran preliminary checks while you were talking." Jake turned his laptop screen toward Ray. "Your brother's got some interesting financial history. 3 bankruptcies, defaulted student loans, and a civil judgment from his last employer for theft of company property." "Theft?" "He was selling construction materials on the side. Got caught, got sued, got fired. The judgment's still active. He owes them $18,000. Ray stared at the screen. He never mentioned any of this. People rarely advertise their failures. "What about your wife? Any red flags there?" "She lost her real estate license 2 years ago. Said the market was slow, but I never looked into it." Jake's fingers flew over the keyboard. "Real estate licensing board. Let's see. Sarah Elizabeth Carter, license suspended for failure to disclose material facts in property transactions. 3 complaints filed by buyers, 1 lawsuit settled out of court." She lied to clients? Looks like it. And she's been working without a license for the past 6 months. That's a felony in Colorado. Ray felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What kind of work?" "Property management for a company called Summit Holdings. Want to bet she's been taking cash payments and not reporting them?" Ray nodded. "What else? Give me 48 hours. I'll have everything. Bank records, phone records, social media analysis. By Friday, you'll know more about these 2 than they know about themselves." Ray stood up. "Thanks, Jake." "Ray." Jake's voice stopped him at the door. "Whatever you're planning, remember that revenge is a luxury you can't afford. Justice is different. Justice is about making things right." "What's the difference?" "Revenge is about making them hurt. Justice is about making them accountable." Ray walked to his truck, thinking about the difference between hurt and accountability. By the time he reached home, he'd decided Jake was wrong. Sometimes they were the same thing. The envelope arrived on Thursday morning. Ray was drinking coffee when Sarah brought in the mail, her face pale. "What's this?" She held up a manila envelope addressed to both of them. Ray glanced at it. "Looks like legal documents." "Legal documents for what?" "Open it and see." Sarah's hands shook as she tore open the envelope. Inside were divorce papers, property division agreements, and a letter from Ray's attorney requesting a mediation meeting. "Ray, what the hell is this?" "It's what happens when a marriage ends." Ray's voice was calm, almost conversational. "I figured you'd want to handle it quietly, without drama." "Without drama? You're divorcing me without even talking to me first." "What would we have talked about? How you've been sleeping with my brother? How you've been lying to me for months? How you've been stealing from our joint account to pay for your dates? Sarah's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Ray pulled out his phone and showed her a screenshot from the security camera. Sarah and Eli in the kitchen kissing. The timestamp was clear. Yesterday, 10:15 a.m. You installed cameras? You've been spying on me? I installed cameras to catch a thief. I caught 2 of them. Sarah stared at the phone screen. Ray, I can explain. No need. Your actions explained everything. Ray stood up. I'm staying at a motel until this gets sorted out. The house is mine, but I'll give you 30 days to find somewhere else to live. 30 days? Ray, be reasonable. We can work this out. People make mistakes. Mistakes? Ray's voice hardened. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. A mistake is buying the wrong brand of coffee. Screwing my brother in my house isn't a mistake. It's a choice. Sarah started crying. Please, Ray, I love you. I made a terrible decision, but I love you. You love me? Ray walked to the kitchen window and looked out at the garage. You love me so much you've been planning to leave me for 3 months. You love me so much you've been stealing money from our account. You love me so much you destroyed our marriage for a man who's bankrupted himself 3 times. What are you talking about? Ask Eli about his financial history. Ask him about the theft charges. Ask him about the $18,000 he owes his last employer. Sarah's tears stopped. You're lying. I'm done lying. That was your specialty. Ray picked up his keys. My lawyer will be in touch. He left Sarah standing in the kitchen, holding the divorce papers, staring at the phone screen that showed her betrayal in high definition. At the motel, Ray opened his laptop and reviewed Jake's full report. It was worse than he'd expected. Sarah had been taking cash payments for unlicensed real estate work, not reporting the income, and spending the money on gifts for Eli. Eli had been using multiple credit cards in Ray's name, running up debt that Ray would have been responsible for if he hadn't discovered it. Ray made a list of everyone who needed to know the truth. Sarah's parents, their mutual friends, the church they attended, Sarah's former colleagues, Ray's co-workers, the neighbors. He wasn't going to blast the information on social media like some heartbroken teenager. He was going to tell the truth, person by person, conversation by conversation. He was going to let them draw their own conclusions. Ray started with Sarah's parents. He called her father, Tom, who'd always treated Ray like the son he'd never had. Ray, good to hear from you. How are things? Not great, Tom. I need to tell you something about Sarah. What's wrong? Is she okay? She's fine physically, but she's been having an affair with my brother. I filed for divorce yesterday. Silence on the other end of the line. Tom, you there? I'm here. Are you sure about this? I have video evidence. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but I thought you should know before you hear it from someone else. Video evidence? Ray, what the hell has been going on? Ray told him everything, the cameras, the financial theft, Eli's history. Tom listened without interrupting. I'm sorry, Ray. I'm so goddamn sorry. That girl, we raised her better than this. She's an adult, Tom. She made her choices. What can we do? How can we help? Nothing. I just wanted you to know the truth. After hanging up, Ray felt no satisfaction. Telling Tom had been necessary, but it didn't make him feel better. It just made everything real. His phone buzzed. A text from Eli. We need to talk. Where are you? Ray typed back. Motel 6 on Highway 34, room 127. 20 minutes later, Eli pounded on the door. Ray opened it to find his brother's face red with anger. What the hell is wrong with you? Eli pushed past Ray into the room. You can't just destroy everyone's life because you're upset. I'm not destroying anything. I'm revealing what was already destroyed. Sarah's a wreck. She's been crying for hours. And her parents are asking questions I can't answer. Then answer them honestly. Tell them you've been screwing their daughter while living in her husband's house. Eli's fist came fast, but Ray was ready. He ducked the punch and grabbed Eli's wrist, twisting it until his brother dropped to his knees. Violence won't fix this, Ray said calmly, but it will make everything worse for you. Let go of me. Ray released him. Sit down. We're going to have a conversation. Eli rubbed his wrist and sat on the bed. You're my brother. We can work this out. No, we can't. You crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. It just happened, Ray. We didn't plan it. Bullshit. You planned it for months. You moved into my house, earned my trust, and then seduced my wife. That's not something that just happens. Eli's face flushed. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have been looking for something else. Ray stared at his brother. Say that again. You heard me. Sarah needed attention, affection, someone who actually listened to her. You were always working, always distant. You drove her away. So you were doing me a favor? I was being there for her when you weren't. Ray nodded slowly. Get out. Ray, come on. Get out of my room. Get out of my house. Get out of my life. Eli stood up. Fine, but this isn't over. Sarah and I are together now. We're going to make this work. No, you're not. Because Sarah's about to find out who you really are. And you're about to find out what it's like to have nothing. After Eli left, Ray sat on the bed and called Jake. I need you to accelerate the timeline, Ray said. I want everything you can find on both of them by tomorrow morning. What happened? My brother thinks he's won. I need to show him how wrong he is. Ray, be careful. Angry people make mistakes. I'm not angry. I'm focused. But Jake was wrong. Ray was angry. He was furious. And he was about to channel that fury into something surgical, precise, and devastating. Friday morning, Ray received Jake's complete report. 57 pages of financial records, employment history, social media analysis, and legal documents. He read it twice, taking notes, planning his approach. Sarah had been more than unfaithful. She'd been criminal. The unlicensed real estate work was just the beginning. She'd been taking cash payments from clients, not reporting the income, and using the money to pay for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, and gifts for Eli. The IRS was going to be very interested in her unreported income. Eli's situation was worse. He'd been using Ray's credit cards without permission, opening accounts in Ray's name, and even taking out a personal loan using Ray's truck as collateral. The financial fraud charges would be federal. Ray drove to the police station and asked to speak to Detective Martinez, a friend from his Army days who joined the force after his service ended. Ray, what brings you here? I need to report financial fraud and identity theft. Martinez's expression grew serious. Against you? By my wife and brother. Ray laid out the evidence methodically. Bank statements showing unauthorized charges. Credit applications with forged signatures. The personal loan documents. Martinez took notes, occasionally whistling under his breath. This is substantial, Martinez said. We're talking about multiple felonies. Are you sure you want to press charges? I'm sure. Even against your wife? Especially against my wife. Martinez nodded. I'll need you to file a formal complaint. This is going to get ugly. It's already ugly. I'm just making it official. Ray spent 2 hours at the police station, filling out forms, providing evidence, and making his statement. By the time he left, Sarah and Eli were facing a combined total of 7 felony charges. But Ray wasn't finished. He drove to Summit Holdings, the property management company where Sarah had been working illegally. He asked to speak to the owner, a man named Peterson, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mr. Peterson, I'm Ray Carter. My wife Sarah has been working for you. Oh, yes, Sarah's been very helpful. Is there a problem? She doesn't have a real estate license. She hasn't had one for 2 years. The work she's been doing for you is illegal. Peterson's face went pale. What are you talking about? Ray showed him the licensing board documents. She's been taking cash payments from your clients for unlicensed real estate work. That makes you liable for her actions. I had no idea. She told me her license was current. She lied. And now you're both in legal trouble. I'd suggest you contact your attorney immediately. Ray left Peterson scrambling to find his lawyer's phone number. By evening, Sarah would be unemployed and unemployable. Next, Ray drove to the coffee shop where Eli had been telling everyone he had a job lined up. He found the owner, a woman named Betty who'd known Ray since he'd moved to town. Ray, how are you doing? I've been better, Betty. I need to ask you about my brother Eli. Oh, he's a charmer, comes in here every day, flirts with all the girls, says he's got a big construction job starting next week. He doesn't have a job. He's been lying to you, to everyone. He's been living in my house, stealing from me and sleeping with my wife. Betty's mouth dropped open. Are you serious? Dead serious. And I thought you should know since he's been telling people he works for you. He what? I never offered him a job. I barely know him. He's been using your coffee shop as his alibi. When people ask where he works, he says he's interviewing with you. Betty shook her head. That son of a witch. I'll ban him from the shop. That's your decision. I just wanted you to know the truth. Ray's phone rang as he was driving home. It was Tom, Sarah's father. Ray, I need to talk to you. Can you come over? I'm not sure that's a good idea. Please. Martha and I have been talking. We need to understand what's happening. Ray drove to the house where Sarah had grown up, a modest ranch home on the outskirts of town. Tom and Martha were waiting on the porch, looking like they'd aged 10 years since yesterday. Ray, thank you for coming, Martha said. We've been trying to call Sarah, but she's not answering. She's probably busy dealing with the consequences of her choices. Tom gestured to the porch chairs. Sit down, we need to talk. Ray sat. What do you want to know? Everything. From the beginning, we raised that girl to be honest, to be faithful. We don't understand how this happened. Ray told them everything. The cameras, the financial theft, the lies, the legal charges he'd filed. Tom and Martha listened in stunned silence. She's going to jail? Martha asked. Probably. The financial fraud is substantial. She's stolen thousands of dollars, committed identity theft, and been working illegally for months. And Eli? He's facing federal charges. The credit card fraud crosses state lines. Tom shook his head. I can't believe this. My daughter, a criminal. Tom, I'm sorry. I know this is hard to hear. No, Ray. You did the right thing. Sarah made her bed. Now she has to lie in it. Martha started crying. Where did we go wrong? You didn't go wrong, Ray said. Sarah's an adult. She made her choices. What happens now? Tom asked. Now she lives with the consequences. Both of them do. Ray's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to meet tonight. This is getting out of hand. Ray showed the message to Tom. That's probably Eli. What are you going to do? I'm going to meet with him. One last time. Be careful, Ray. Desperate people do desperate things. Ray nodded. I know. But I'm not the desperate one. Ray texted back. Riverside Park, 9 p.m. Come alone. He arrived early, parking his truck where he could see the entire area. The park was empty except for a few joggers and a couple walking their dog. Ray chose a picnic table near the river, close enough to the parking lot to be seen but far enough away to have privacy. Eli arrived 10 minutes late, looking like he hadn't slept. He walked slowly toward the table, his hands visible, his posture defeated. Thanks for coming, Eli said, sitting across from Ray. Talk. This has gone too far. Sarah's having a breakdown. She's been drinking, not eating. She's talking about self-destruction. Ray's expression didn't change. Is that supposed to make me feel guilty? Ray, she's your wife. You loved her once. I loved the person I thought she was. That person doesn't exist. Eli leaned forward. Look, I know we screwed up. I know we hurt you. But pressing criminal charges, that's going to destroy both of us. That's the point. Come on, man, we're family. We can work this out. No, we can't. You're not my family anymore. You're just a criminal I used to know. Eli's face hardened. Fine. If that's how you want it, then let's be honest about what this is really about. I'm listening. You're not angry about the affair. You're angry because Sarah chose me over you. You're angry because someone finally saw through your perfect husband act. Ray tilted his head. What perfect husband act? The one where you pretend to be this loyal, devoted guy, but you're not. You're cold, Ray. You're distant. You never really loved Sarah. You just owned her. Is that what you think? I know it. Sarah told me about the way you ignored her, the way you made her feel like she wasn't worth your time. She was lonely, Ray. She needed someone who actually cared about her. So you cared about her by stealing from me, by lying to everyone in town, by destroying her marriage? I cared about her by being there when she needed someone. Ray stood up. You want to know what I think, Eli? Sure. I think you're a parasite. I think you spent your whole life taking from people who trusted you. I think you saw an opportunity to take my life, and you took it. That's not... I think you convinced Sarah that she deserved better than me. Not because you wanted to make her happy, but because you wanted what I had. My house, my money, my respect in this town. Eli stood up too. You don't know what you're talking about. I think you're about to find out what it's like to have nothing. No job, no money, no home, no reputation. Just like you've always been, except now everyone knows it. You son of a witch. Maybe, But I'm not the one going to prison. Eli lunged across the table. Ray sidestepped, grabbed Eli's wrist, and used his brother's momentum to slam him face first into the picnic table. Eli groaned and rolled onto his back, blood trickling from his nose. "Stay down," Ray said calmly. "You're already in enough trouble." Eli wiped blood from his nose. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is. You just haven't figured it out yet." Ray walked back to his truck, leaving Eli sitting at the picnic table, holding his nose, staring at the river. On the drive home, Ray's phone rang. It was Detective Martinez. "Ray, we've got a problem. Sarah Carter tried to eliminate herself tonight. She's in the hospital." Ray pulled over. "What happened?" "Pills and booze." "Her neighbor found her and called 911. She's stable, but it's serious." "Where is she?" "County Medical." "Ray, I need to ask, did you have any contact with her today?" "No, I haven't spoken to her since I filed the divorce papers." "Okay. Look, this doesn't change the criminal charges, but it might affect the timeline. Her lawyer's going to use this as evidence that she's not mentally competent to stand trial." "Let them try. Mental illness doesn't excuse criminal behavior." "I know, but it's going to complicate things. Are you okay?" Ray stared out at the highway. "I'm fine." "Are you sure? This is a lot to process." "I'm sure." But Ray wasn't sure. He was tired, angry, and empty. He'd spent weeks planning Sarah and Eli's destruction, and now that it was happening, he felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, no closure. Just emptiness. He drove to the hospital and asked about Sarah. The nurse told him she was sedated and couldn't have visitors. "Are you family?" the nurse asked. "I'm her husband. We're getting divorced." "I'm sorry, that must be difficult." Ray nodded. "Can you tell me how she is?" "She's going to be fine physically, but she's going to need psychological help." "Will she get it?" "That depends on her insurance and her family's support." Ray thought about Tom and Martha, Sarah's parents who'd raised her to be honest and faithful. They'd be here soon, trying to understand how their daughter had become a criminal and a self-destruction risk. "I'll be in touch," Ray told the nurse. He drove home to the house that felt empty and cold. Sarah's clothes were still in the closet. Her coffee mug was still in the sink. Her perfume still lingered in the bathroom. Ray sat on the couch and stared at the wall. He'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss, like the end of something that had never really existed. His phone buzzed, a text from Jake. "Saw the news about Sarah, you okay?" Ray typed back, "Fine, just tired." "Want to talk?" "No, I need to sleep." But Ray didn't sleep. He sat in the dark, thinking about the man he'd been before he'd installed the cameras, before he'd discovered the truth. That man had been naive, trusting, hopeful. That man was gone. In his place was someone harder, colder, more calculating. Someone who could destroy two people's lives without losing sleep. Someone who felt nothing when his wife tried to eliminate herself. Ray wasn't sure he liked who he'd become, but he was sure he could live with it. 3 weeks later, Ray sat in his lawyer's office, reviewing the final divorce settlement. Sarah would get nothing from the marriage, the house, the cars, the savings accounts. All of it stayed with Ray. She'd signed the papers from her hospital bed, with her court-appointed attorney standing beside her. "She's pleading guilty to the financial fraud charges," his lawyer explained. "The prosecutor is recommending 18 months in prison, followed by probation and restitution." "How much restitution?" $47,000. "That's what she stole from you, plus interest and penalties." Ray nodded. "And Eli?" "He's looking at 3 to 5 years federal time for the identity theft and credit fraud. He'll be transferred to a federal facility after his local sentencing." "When?" "Next month." "He's already been denied bail." Ray signed the papers, officially ending his marriage. 8 years reduced to a signature on a legal document. Outside the lawyer's office, Ray ran into Betty from the coffee shop. "Ray, I heard about Sarah." "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine, Betty. Thanks for asking." "I can't believe what she and your brother did. The whole town's talking about it." "I'm sure they are. People are saying you handled it better than most men would have." "No violence, no public scenes, just let the law handle it." Ray smiled grimly. "The law works if you let it. Still, it can't be easy, losing your wife and your brother at the same time. I didn't lose them, Betty. I discovered who they really were." Ray drove home thinking about Betty's words. The whole town was talking about it. That had been part of his plan, to make sure everyone knew the truth. Sarah and Eli's reputations were destroyed. They'd never be able to show their faces in this town again. But Ray's reputation had grown. People saw him as a man who'd handled betrayal with dignity, who'd used the legal system instead of violence, who'd stood up for himself without becoming a sufferer. At home, Ray found a letter from Sarah in his mailbox. Her handwriting was shaky, uncertain. "Ray, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything I did to you, to us, to our marriage. I'm sorry for the lies, the theft, the betrayal. I'm sorry for choosing Eli over you. I know you won't believe this, but I did love you. I still love you. I just lost my way. I let Eli convince me that I deserve something different, something better. I was wrong. You were the best thing in my life, and I destroyed it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking you to know that I'm sorry. I'm going to prison, and I'll probably die there. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I hope you find someone who appreciates you the way I should have. I hope you find happiness. I hope you can forgive me someday, even if I can't forgive myself." Sarah Ray read the letter twice, then threw it in the trash. He felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no sympathy, just emptiness. His phone rang. It was his old platoon sergeant, Jake. "Ray, I've got some news. Eli's been talking to the prosecutor. He's trying to cut a deal." "What kind of deal?" "He's claiming that Sarah forced him to help her steal from you. Says she threatened to accuse him of serious crime if he didn't go along with it." Ray laughed, a sound without humor. "Does anyone believe that?" "The prosecutor doesn't. But Eli's lawyer is pushing hard. He's trying to paint Sarah as the mastermind and Eli as another sufferer." "What do you think?" "I think Eli's a coward who's trying to save his own skin." "The evidence doesn't support his story." "Good, let him try. It won't work." "Ray, there's something else. The prosecutor wants to meet with you. He's considering additional charges against both of them." "What kind of charges?" "Conspiracy, racketeering, organized fraud. If they can prove that Sarah and Eli planned this together, they can add years to their sentences." Ray felt a spark of interest. "When does he want to meet?" "Tomorrow morning." "Can you make it?" "I'll be there." After hanging up, Ray walked through his house, looking at the empty spaces where Sarah's things used to be. The house felt different now. Not lonely, but peaceful. For the first time in months, he could breathe. He poured himself a beer and sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains. Tomorrow, he'd meet with the prosecutor and help them build an even stronger case. Tonight, he'd enjoy the silence. The next morning, Ray met with District Attorney Wilson, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and the bearing of someone who'd seen every kind of human cruelty. "Mr. Carter, thank you for coming. I've reviewed your case thoroughly. What your wife and brother did goes beyond simple adultery and theft." "How so?" "The pattern of behavior suggests a coordinated effort to defraud you systematically. The timing, the financial movements, the false documentation, this wasn't impulsive, this was planned." Wilson spread documents across the conference table: bank statements, credit applications, hotel receipts, restaurant bills. "They opened joint accounts without your knowledge. They took out loans using your assets as collateral. They even applied for credit cards in your name while you were deployed for National Guard training last year." Ray studied the papers. "I never saw any of this." "Because they had the statements sent to a P.O. box they rented together. Look at this." Wilson pointed to a rental agreement. "They've had this box for 8 months. It's listed under both their names." Ray felt his jaw tighten. "They were planning to leave me. More than that, they were planning to bankrupt you first. Look at these loan applications. If you hadn't discovered the affair, they would have put another $60,000 of debt in your name." "Can you prove conspiracy?" "With your testimony and this evidence, absolutely. We're talking about organized fraud, conspiracy to commit identity theft, and criminal enterprise. Instead of 18 months, Sarah's looking at 5 to 7 years. Eli's looking at 8 to 10. Ray leaned back in his chair. "What do you need from me?" "Your continued cooperation, testimony at trial, and patience. This is going to take time." "I've got time." Wilson studied him. "Mr. Carter, I have to ask, how are you handling all this?" "Most people in your situation would would be what? Angry, vengeful, looking for blood. Ray smiled without warmth. I got my revenge. I used the legal system to destroy two people who tried to destroy me. That's not vengeance. That's justice. And you're satisfied with that? I'm satisfied that they're facing the consequences of their choices. Wilson nodded. Good, because this case is going to be high profile. The media's already picked it up. Betrayed husband uses law, not violence, to get justice. You're going to be held up as an example. An example of what? How to handle betrayal the right way. Ray left the DA's office feeling oddly empty. He'd become a symbol, a cautionary tale, a model of restraint. But he didn't feel restrained. He felt cold. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Tanya, Sarah's friend. We need to talk. Ray remembered Tanya, Sarah's enabler, the one who'd encouraged her to follow her heart and live her truth. He texted back, About what? About what you've done to Sarah. About how you destroyed her life. Meet me at Murphy's bar, 1 hour. Ray arrived at Murphy's to find Tanya waiting in a corner booth, her eyes red from crying. She looked like she'd lost weight, like she hadn't been sleeping. Thank you for coming, she said as Ray sat down. What do you want, Tanya? I want you to drop the charges against Sarah. Ray ordered a beer from the waitress. Why would I do that? Because she's dying in there. She's on self-destruction watch. She's not eating. She's not talking to anyone. That's not my problem. Tanya's face flushed. How can you be so cold? You loved her once. I loved someone who doesn't exist. Sarah's been lying to me for months, stealing from me, planning to leave me. The woman I loved was a fiction. People make mistakes. Stop. Ray's voice cut through her protest. This wasn't a mistake. This was a deliberate, calculated betrayal. And you helped. Tanya blinked. What? You encouraged her. You told her she deserved better. You helped her justify the affair. I just wanted her to be happy. No, you wanted her to be like you. Selfish, impulsive, destructive. You wanted company in your misery. Tanya started crying. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you had a stable relationship? When's the last time you made a decision that didn't hurt someone else? You don't know me. I know enough. You're the kind of person who destroys other people's happiness because you can't create your own. Ray stood up. Sarah made her choices. Now she lives with them, just like you live with yours. He left Tanya crying in the booth, her sobs echoing through the empty bar. Outside, Ray felt the mountain air fill his lungs, clear, cold, clean. He drove home through streets where everyone knew his story, where he'd become a local legend, the man who'd beaten betrayal without throwing a punch. But Ray knew the truth. He hadn't beaten anything. He'd just learned to live without feeling. 4 months later, Ray sat in the witness box, facing a courtroom full of reporters, family members, and curious townspeople. Sarah sat at the defendant's table, thin and pale, avoiding his eyes. Eli sat at another table, his lawyer whispering urgently in his ear. The prosecutor, Wilson, approached the witness stand. Mr. Carter, please tell the jury about the security camera system you installed in your home. Ray's testimony was methodical, precise. He explained the cameras, the footage, the discovery of the affair. He showed the jury bank statements, credit applications, loan documents. He walked them through months of systematic theft and deception. And when you discovered this conspiracy, Wilson asked, what was your first reaction? Disappointment. Not anger. No, I was disappointed that two people I trusted had chosen to betray me. What did you do next? I gathered evidence. I consulted with attorneys and investigators. I used the legal system to protect myself and hold them accountable. Sarah's lawyer cross-examined him, trying to paint him as a cold, controlling husband who'd driven his wife to infidelity. But Ray's calm, measured responses deflected every attack. Mr. Carter, isn't it true that you were emotionally distant during your marriage? I worked hard to provide for my family. If that's distant, then yes. Isn't it true that you ignored your wife's emotional needs? I wasn't aware she had emotional needs that couldn't be met within our marriage. She never communicated any dissatisfaction to me. But surely you noticed changes in her behavior? I noticed she was happier. I thought that was good. I didn't know she was happy because she was betraying me. The jury watched Ray with obvious sympathy. Here was a man who'd been wronged but had responded with dignity and restraint. Here was a sufferer who'd refused to become a villain. Eli's lawyer tried a different approach, claiming his client was manipulated by Sarah. "Mr. Carter, do you believe your brother was influenced by your wife?" "I believe my brother made conscious choices to betray me. Whether he was influenced or not doesn't change the fact that he chose to commit crimes." "But surely you understand that people can be manipulated." "Yes, I was manipulated for months, but I didn't commit crimes as a result." The trial lasted 3 weeks. Character witnesses testified about Ray's integrity, his service to his country, his reputation in the community. Sarah's former clients testified about her fraudulent real estate practices. Eli's former employers testified about his pattern of theft and deception. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They found both defendants guilty on all counts. At sentencing, Sarah received 7 years in federal prison. Eli received 9 years. Both were ordered to pay full restitution to Ray, though he knew he'd never see the money. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Ray. "Mr. Carter, how do you feel about the sentences?" "I feel that justice was served." "Do you have any message for other betrayed spouses?" "Trust the legal system. Don't take the law into your own hands. Let truth and evidence speak for themselves." "What's next for you?" "I'm going to rebuild my life. I'm going to move forward." But Ray wasn't sure what moving forward meant. He'd achieved everything he'd set out to achieve. Sarah and Eli were in prison. Their reputations were destroyed. Their crimes were exposed. Justice had been served. So why did he feel so empty? 6 months after the trial, Ray received a letter from Sarah. She was serving her sentence at a federal prison in Texas, working in the library, attending counseling sessions. "Ray, I know you probably throw away my letters without reading them, but I need to keep writing. It's the only thing that keeps me sane in here. I've been in therapy for 4 months now. Dr. Martinez says I need to take responsibility for my choices without making excuses. So here it is. I destroyed our marriage because I was selfish. I chose instant gratification over long-term commitment. I chose excitement over stability. I chose your brother over you because it was easy and forbidden and made me feel young again. I didn't think about consequences. I didn't think about how it would hurt you. I didn't think about how it would end. I just thought about how it felt in the moment." Dr. Martinez says that's not an excuse. She's right. Being impulsive doesn't justify being cruel. Being unhappy doesn't justify being criminal. I stole from you. I lied to you. I betrayed you. And then I tried to eliminate myself rather than face what I'd done. That was selfish too. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did. I understand that you had every right to prosecute me. I understand that you did exactly what you should have done. I heard about the book deal. Good for you. I hope telling your story helps other people. I hope it helps you too. I'm sorry, Ray, for everything." Sarah Ray read the letter twice, then filed it with the others she'd sent. He didn't respond to them, but he didn't throw them away either. They were evidence of something. Remorse, perhaps. Or at least acknowledgement. The book deal was real. A publisher had approached Ray about writing his story, positioning it as a guide for betrayed spouses who wanted to seek justice without revenge. Ray had agreed, partly for the money, but mostly to have something to do with his time. Writing the book forced him to relive everything: the discovery, the investigation, the legal process, the trial. But it also forced him to examine his own role in what had happened. Had he been a good husband? He'd been faithful, responsible, hardworking. But had he been emotionally present? Had he listened to Sarah's concerns? Had he made her feel valued and loved? The honest answer was no. He'd taken their marriage for granted. He'd assumed that providing financially was enough. He'd been distant, distracted, focused on work and routine rather than connection. That didn't excuse what Sarah had done, but it explained some of it. Ray finished the book on a cold December morning, exactly 1 year after he'd first seen the security camera footage. He titled it "Blood in the Bonds: How I Used the Law to Survive Betrayal." The publisher loved it. Early reviews were positive. The media called it a masterclass in restraint and a guide for anyone who's ever been betrayed. But Ray felt no satisfaction in the praise. He felt like he was being celebrated for becoming someone he didn't like, someone cold, calculating, and emotionally dead. His phone rang. It was Jake, his old army buddy. "Ray, I saw the interview on Channel 7. You looked good." Thanks. But you sounded like a robot. What's going on with you? Nothing, I'm fine. Bullshit, you're not fine. You're walking around like a ghost. Ray looked out his window at the snow-covered mountains. I did what I had to do. And now? What are you doing now? Living with it? That's not living, Ray. That's existing. Maybe that's enough. No, it's not. You destroyed two people who hurt you, but in the process, you destroyed yourself. That's not justice. That's mutual annihilation. Ray hung up without saying goodbye. Jake was wrong. Ray hadn't destroyed himself. He'd just discovered who he really was under the facade of the loyal husband and trusting brother. He was someone capable of cold, methodical revenge. Someone who could watch two people's lives burn without feeling sympathy. Maybe that was the real truth. Maybe the security cameras hadn't just revealed Sarah and Eli's betrayal. Maybe they'd revealed Ray's true nature. His doorbell rang. Ray opened it to find Tom, Sarah's father, standing on his porch with a bottle of whiskey and a grim expression. Tom, what are you doing here? I came to drink with my son-in-law. Former son-in-law. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Probably not, but I'm doing it anyway. Tom pushed past Ray into the house, set the whiskey on the kitchen table, and found 2 glasses in the cabinet. Sit down, Ray. Ray sat. Tom poured 2 generous drinks and slid one across the table. To justice, Tom said, raising his glass. To justice, Ray replied. They drank in silence for several minutes. Finally, Tom spoke. I visited Sarah last month. Ray said nothing. She looks terrible. Lost about 30 pounds. Says she's not sleeping. Says she has nightmares about what she did to you. Good. Tom studied Ray's face. You really mean that, don't you? Yes. That's what scares me. What scares you? You've become someone I don't recognize. The Ray I knew was capable of forgiveness. The Ray I knew believed in redemption. That Ray was naive. Maybe, but he was also human. Tom poured another drink. Sarah asked me to give you a message. I don't want to hear it. She said to tell you that she knows you'll never forgive her. She said she doesn't expect you to. But she wanted you to know that she's going to spend the rest of her life trying to become someone worthy of the forgiveness she'll never receive. Ray felt something stir in his chest. Not sympathy exactly, but something close to it. She also said something else, Tom continued. She said she hopes you don't spend the rest of your life hating her, because that would mean she's still controlling your life from prison. Ray stared at his glass. What's that supposed to mean? It means that as long as you're defined by what she did to you, she's still winning. She's not winning. She's in federal prison. And you're in a prison of your own making. You've locked yourself away from feeling anything. You become a machine that processes anger and dispenses justice. But you're not living. Tom finished his drink and stood up. I'm not asking you to forgive Sarah. I'm asking you to forgive yourself. For what? For trusting her. For loving her. For being human enough to get hurt. After Tom left, Ray sat alone in his kitchen, thinking about forgiveness. He'd spent a year seeking justice, and he'd gotten it. Sarah and Eli were in prison. Their crimes had been exposed. Their reputations were destroyed. But Tom was right about one thing. Ray had become a machine. He'd optimized himself for revenge, and now that revenge was complete, he didn't know how to function. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. Jake's number was still there. So were the numbers of other army buddies, old friends, people who'd tried to stay in touch over the past year. Ray had ignored them all, focused entirely on destroying Sarah and Eli. He'd achieved his goal, but he'd lost everything else in the process. He thought about calling Jake back, apologizing for hanging up. He thought about reaching out to other friends, trying to rebuild the connections he'd severed. He thought about dating, about finding someone new, about learning to trust again. But those thoughts felt foreign, like trying to remember a language he'd once spoken fluently, but had forgotten. Ray looked around his house, clean, organized, empty. This was his victory. This was what justice looked like. A man alone in a house full of ghosts, celebrated by strangers, admired by people who didn't know him. He opened his laptop and started typing. Chapter 15, The Cost of Justice. People ask me if I have any regrets about how I handled my wife's betrayal. The honest answer is complicated. I don't regret exposing the truth. I don't regret using the legal system. I don't regret holding them accountable for their crimes, but I do regret what I became in the process. I turned myself into a weapon designed for one purpose: destruction. And when that purpose was fulfilled, I didn't know how to be anything else. Justice isn't just about punishing the guilty. It's about healing the innocent. And I forgot that part. I was so focused on making Sarah and Eli pay for what they'd done that I forgot to heal myself. So to anyone reading this who's been betrayed, who's been hurt, who's seeking justice, remember that vengeance and justice aren't the same thing. Justice heals. Vengeance just spreads the damage. Don't make my mistake. Don't sacrifice your humanity for your revenge. Don't become a monster to defeat monsters. Find justice, but don't lose yourself in the process. Ray saved the document and closed the laptop. Outside, snow was falling again, covering the mountains in white. Beautiful and cold and empty. Like him. But maybe Tom was right. Maybe it wasn't too late to change. Maybe he could learn to be human again. Maybe he could find a way to live instead of just existing. Ray picked up his phone and called Jake. Jake, it's Ray. I'm sorry I hung up on you. Yes, I know I sound like a robot. No, I'm not fine. Can we talk? 2 years after the trial, Ray stood in the same courtroom where Sarah and Eli had been sentenced. But this time, he wasn't there as a sufferer or a witness. He was there as an advocate. The defendant was a young woman named Lisa, whose husband had been embezzling from their joint accounts while having an affair with her sister. The husband's lawyer was arguing for a reduced sentence, claiming his client was motivated by love rather than greed. Ray watched the proceedings with interest, but without the cold satisfaction he'd once felt. He'd testified earlier as an expert witness, explaining how financial infidelity could be prosecuted under existing fraud statutes. The judge sentenced the husband to 4 years in prison and full restitution. Outside the courthouse, Lisa hugged Ray tearfully. "Thank you," she said. "If you hadn't written that book, I never would have known I had legal options." "You did the hard work," Ray replied. "I just showed you a path." Ray drove home to a house that looked different than it had 2 years ago. He'd repainted it, bought new furniture, planted a garden. Sarah's ghost no longer haunted every room. He'd also started dating. Nothing serious yet, but he was learning to trust again, slowly and carefully. He'd realized that not everyone was Sarah, that not every relationship would end in betrayal. The book had been successful, spawning a sequel and speaking engagements around the country. Ray traveled frequently now, talking to support groups, law enforcement agencies, and anyone else who would listen about the difference between justice and revenge. He'd also reconnected with old friends, started attending church again, and even talked to a therapist about his tendency to emotionally shut down when threatened. The therapist, Dr. Kim, had helped him understand that his response to betrayal, the cold calculation, the systematic revenge, wasn't unusual for someone with his military background. But she'd also helped him see that he didn't have to stay locked in that mode forever. Trauma responses are adaptive, she'd explained. They help you survive. But they can also trap you in survival mode when you no longer need to survive. Ray's phone buzzed, a text from Jake. "Saw you on the news. Good interview." "You actually looked human this time." Ray smiled and typed back. "Still working on it." He'd received 2 more letters from Sarah over the past year. She was doing better, working toward her GED, participating in sufferer impact programs. She'd be eligible for parole in 3 years. Ray still didn't respond to her letters, but he also didn't throw them away. They represented something important, the possibility of redemption, even for someone who'd done irreparable damage. Eli had written too, though his letters were different, still full of self-pity and blame-shifting. Some people changed in prison, others just got bitter. Eli seemed to be in the second category. Ray had learned to live with that too. He couldn't control other people's choices, only his own, and he'd chosen to move forward rather than remain frozen in anger. As the sun set over the mountains, Ray sat on his porch with a beer and his laptop working on his next book. This one wasn't about betrayal or revenge. It was about rebuilding, about learning to trust again, about the long journey from sufferer to survivor to someone who could help others. The security cameras were still there, but Ray rarely checked them anymore. He'd installed them to catch a thief and ended up catching something much worse. But he'd also learned that truth, however painful, was better than lies. Ray saved his work and closed the laptop. Tomorrow, he'd drive to Denver for another speaking engagement. Next week, he had a date with a teacher named Rebecca, who seemed to understand that healing took time. He wasn't the same man who'd installed those cameras 3 years ago. That man had been naive, trusting, unprepared for betrayal. This man was wiser, stronger, more careful with his trust. But he was also more compassionate. He'd learned that justice without mercy was just another form of cruelty. He'd learned that destroying his enemies hadn't made him whole. Only healing could do that. And healing, unlike revenge, was something he had to do for himself. Ray finished his beer and went inside, turning off the porch light behind him. The cameras kept recording, but he wasn't watching anymore. He was too busy living.